Hey everybody! Today I'm going to read one of my oldest son's favorite book, The Story of Ferdinand by Monroe Leaf, and the drawings were by Robert Lawson. This is a story about a bull that I would say is a very peaceful bull. I can't wait to hear what you guys think. Here we go. The Story of Ferdinand. This is in honor of my mom and sister, too. They live in Spain. And I think that's where the story takes place. El Toro Feroz, Fernando. Forgive my Spanish. The Story of Ferdinand. Once upon a time in Spain, there was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. But not Ferdinand. He liked to sit just quietly and smell the flowers. He's getting ready for spring too. But he had a favorite spot in our pasture, under the cork tree. There he is. I wonder what a cork tree is. It was his first favorite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. You're right. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. Look at that cow. Is it the mom worried about him? And Ferdinand way up there? Oh. Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head, she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. I like it better here, where I can just sit quietly and smell the flowers. We're kind of like Ferdinand right now, kind of having to stay put. His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. As years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. Oh, look at, do you have a place like this in your house where you measure how tall you are? Like in our classroom. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other. All day, they would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. There's a little sign there that talks about wanting bulls to come so they could maybe be chosen to be in the bullfights. That's a tradition they do in Spain. We don't have that here in our states, in the United States. But not Ferdinand. He still liked to just sit quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fastest, roughest, toughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. Look at all those hats. Think about the ones we have in our classroom. All the other bulls ran around, sorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think that they were very, very strong and fierce and pick them. Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care, so he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on the nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. I wonder what happens. Let's look. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? You would sting him. And that is just what this bee did to Ferdinand. Wow, did it hurt? Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. That must have been a sight to see. The 5 men saw him, and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all. Just the one for the bullfights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bullfight day in a cart. Oh, there he is loaded up. Look at that. What a day it was. Flags were flying, bands were playing, and all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade into the bull ring. Next came the picadors, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull and make him matador. Oh, I'm sorry, and make him madder. The matador might come up later in the story. That's why Miss Ann misread that. That's funny. So these men are called the picadors. And they use these little spears to poke at the bull to aggravate him. Doesn't seem very nice, does it? Wow. Oh, then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. Then came the bull, and you know who that was, don't you? Ferdinand. Is he coming down that alleyway? They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and the banderillos were afraid of him, and the picadors were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because he thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns all around. Do you think Ferdinand's going to fight? I keep thinking about those ladies with the hats. But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers in the lovely lady's hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled. And the banderillos were mad, and the picadors were madder, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off with his cape and sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. And for all I know, he is sitting there still under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. He is very happy. What do those words say? The end. And then here's a snapshot of Ferdinand again. El Toro Feroz. I think it's a fierce bull. I think that's what it means. That's a scene from Spain somewhere. All right, I'm missing you guys. Have a great night.